27th of February, Rabbi Furst, Pierke Avos.
Okay, got it. Okay, here we are.
Oh, good morning, Shavua Tov. Good morning. Good morning, Lou. Good morning, Barry. How's everyone doing today?
Baruch Hashem.
Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay, we're recording. All right. Good morning. This is Rabbi Shlomo Furst here. You see with Sama Nafshi. And tonight, here of Zoom, we are learning Pirkei Avos along with Megillah Esther. We are in the second chapter of Megillah Esther. I believe I'll tell you exactly where we left off.
I think it's hey.
Yes.
Ish Yehudi?
Yes, exactly. Very good. Very good. Anyone would like to begin to read?
I do.
Okay.
I'll just say good morning, everybody, first.
Yes,
Good morning, Roy.
Good morning, Roy.
It's a bit late, but talking to my brother.
You're just starting them. Don't worry.
Ish Yehudi, Haya B'Shushan Habira, Ushmo Mordechai, Ben Yair Ben Shimi Ben Kish, Ish Yemini. There was a Jewish man in Shushan whose name was Mordechai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish, Ish Yemini, Benjamin. Okay.
Right. So it says Ish, right? The special connotation for Mordecai here being Ish is called Ish. So for that, let's take a look in the second parak of Avos. I'll tell you where it is. Mishnah Vav. So on page 552, if you have your article.
552.
Mishnah Vav.
Mishnah
Wow.
Vav. Okay.
It opens straight away. It opens straight away to 552.
Wow.
Wow.
Okay. Should buy a lottery ticket today. Who Haya Omer, and he used to say, who was that? Who used to say, just so we know?
This is going back.
Rebbe?
Hillel.
Hillel. Okay,
Very good.
Hillel.
Hillel.
Okay. Who Haya Omer? Ein Bur Yirei Chet. A boor does not fear sin.
Right, a boor is a person who's lacking learning. It's similar to an Amaretz, but he's an empty person. That's why a boor. He's like a boor.
Ooh.
Who velo am haaretz chassid, and an unlearned person cannot be pious. Velo habishan lemor, and a bashful person lomed cannot learn. Velo hakpidon milamed, and the quick, impatient person cannot teach. Velo kol hamarbe bischara, anyone who's excessively occupied in business.
Like velo kol, not everybody who there's a lot of business. Not everybody does a lot of business.
Velo kol hamarbe bischaros machkim, can't become a scholar. Uvimkoim, and in a place she'ein anoshim, and a place where there are no leaders, hashtadel lios ish, strive to be a leader.
Oh. So that's what's relevant to our pasuk here about Mordecai. Ish Yehudi was called an Ish. It wasn't easy for Mordecai to do what he did, but because he was resisting. Look at the Gemara. He was resisting many of the leaders of Klal Yisrael at the time. Klal Yisrael had leaders. We've always had leaders in Klal Yisrael from each generation, from the time of Moshe Rabbeinu on down to our very generation today.
In Shushan, right?
In Shushan, exactly. And there was quite when the invitation came to go to that Suda of Achashverosh, there was quite a discussion, you can be sure, about whether or not the Jews should attend or not. And many, even most likely, the majority opinion held that they should, in fact, go to the Suda, whatever various reasons there were. But Mordecai held emphatically no, not to go. So there was no Ish, there's no person there at the time that was taking the situation at hand, and Mordecai had to do that on his own. And it says here that if you're a little bit careful in the expressions that Chazal use in this Mishnah, Makom she'ein anashim, in a place where there are no people, Yishtadol yos ish, strive to be a person. Meaning there's nobody there, nobody's there, meaning including yourself. You yourself are not really fit for the job, right? This is a bigger job than anybody can handle. Who's going to go up against Achashverosh, the king? Who's going to go against Haman, the most richest person, the powerful person in the whole world? You have two of the most powerful people in the world, and they're plotting against you. And how are you going to ever go against them? No one can stand up against that. Nevertheless, in such a situation, Avos is telling us, you put in your efforts to do what you can. And the way it works is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if you put in your maximum efforts, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to come to your aid. And then obviously nobody can withstand the help of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you've got Hashem helping you, there's nothing to stop you from being successful. So, okay, very good. Let's go on to the
Side question, Rabbi.
Yes, Lou.
It says that an unlearned person cannot be pious.
Right.
That word pious, what does that Hebrew word actually mean?
A chassid is someone who goes beyond the letter of the law, right? So if you go on beyond the letter of the law, you have to know the law. So if you're unlearned, you can't fulfill the beyond the, you can't be pious because you simply don't have the background. What please you want a person who's pious, right? A chassid is someone who wants to please HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the first steps in trying to please HaKadosh Baruch Hu is knowing what he wants. The Ramchal in Mesilas Yesharim says that in his chapters on Chassidus, he explains that anytime you find that there's a certain love between a person, he gives the example of a son and his love for the father. So the father doesn't have to say specifically what he wants. Actually, if you read Rabbi Miller's chapter on this week's Parsha, they expressed it. He said he brought a muscle. A son and a father are walking down the street. So the father stops at the fruit stand, and he looks at the fruit. He starts looking at the nice fresh peaches, right? And he stops a moment and looks at them, and then he goes on walking. So the son, right, quickly goes into the store and buys a few peaches for the father because he understood he didn't have to be told by the father that he would like him to buy a peach for him. But the son, understanding what the father was interested in, should take the initiative on his own based on the love that he has for the father. So likewise, a chassid is somebody who takes the initiative in serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He goes beyond what's simply stated in the Shulchan Aruch, and he takes the initiative to do those things which are known to be pleasing to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak. So therefore, if a person's not even knowing of the basics, he can't even get to the first step of Hasidus of going beyond the letter of the law.
The art scroll here puts in the word scrupulously pious, inferring that it could be a little bit pious, but not 100%.
Mhm. Okay, could be. I don't
I
know.
don't know. Is that
I'm
is
not-
that word there in the Ivrit?
No, it's just in our chassid, simply not a chassid.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay,
Why did I put it in?
yeah. They might be learning that scrupulous is like a tzaddik, and extra scrupulous is a chassid. They might be learning like that.
Mhm.
I'm not sure. Okay, let's see the next verse in the Megillah. Verse that would take us to verse Vav.
Asher Hagla Mirushalayim im Hagla Asher Haglasa im Yukanya Melech Yehuda Asher Higla Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavli. He had been exiled from Yerushalayim with the exile that was exiled with Yechana, the king of Judah, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, had exiled. So he came. He wasn't born there. He came from Yerushalayim.
Right? Exactly. Mordecai was from those who lived in Jerusalem, and he was taken into Gullus with the those who were captured and brought into Babel.
So why do we have to know that? If this pasuk wasn't there, and we didn't know that Mordecai was originally from Yerushalayim, how would that change things? Obviously, it's important because the Megillah has to tell us. But if I didn't know that, I would still be impressed with Mordecai, that he was a great person.
Right. Good question. I tell you what. Let me take a look at some of the Meforshim and see if anyone mentions anything about that. In the meantime, let's take a look at the Mishnah. While I'm looking around at the Meforshim,
Okay.
we can start looking at the Mishnah here in Avos, which I'm trying to make a correspondence from them. That's
Okay.
also in the first Parak.
Aleph.
Mishnah Yud Aleph. Aleph Yud Aleph.
Aleph Yud Aleph. Okay. Avtalion Omer. Avtalion said, Chachamim Hazerheru Bidvorechem. Be careful with your words. Shema Techuva Chavas Golos. For you may incur the penalty of exile. Oh. And banished to a place of the Golos, v'taglu b'makam mayim, and banished to a place of waters. Okay, whatever that means. Haroim. V'yishtu hatalmidim havoim, the disciples who follow you there, where this place of waters, havo achareihem, vayamusu, and they'll die. Wow. The nimsa, and then it comes out, Shem Shemayim Mischalel. Wow. This is this is all mysterious. It's like, sounds like Kabbalah.
Really? Why?
Huh?
What's the mysterious thing about it?
I know that this place of evil waters, the place of waters.
It's got here heresy.
Mhm.
Evil,
Yeah.
in brackets, heresy.
Okay.
Right.
They're gonna drink and die.
Yeah, they get this opposite to Torah, meaning you'll have exposure to ideas and concepts that are negative, that are heretical to Torah.
Oh, so does this have a sense of meaning that when you go to a place that doesn't have Torah, the whole atmosphere gets in your bones.
Right. Mhm.
You know, you just get influenced. You don't even realize it, but you're influenced by the tumah that's around you, even if you're not doing anything.
Right.
Is that correct? Is that a way to look at this?
That's first of all, that's the way it always works. The influence of evil is always much more greater than the influence of good. All right, that's the power of things and concepts, behaviors which are not in keeping to Torah. Person could be strong in Torah, the mitzvahs his whole life. He's exposed to one bad thing, and the whole thing can come crashing down. So there's always a very strong concern not ever to be exposed to something which is not in keeping with Torah properly.
Mhm.
Very big concern. So the person has to be very careful what he teaches to people, because if it's not said correctly, it can be misconstrued, and the test will come when the Talmidim are exposed to concepts that they're not familiar with. Now,
From a practical experience, I went to a public high school, so I didn't have obviously any Judaica there, but all through high school, every day, well, I don't know if it was every day, but I made sure that I went like to the rabbis' classes, and then they had some what they called Hebrew high school classes at the synagogue I went to.
That was after school.
After school, yeah, after school and Sunday. And I made sure I went there just to keep up, for whatever, I felt it was important to keep up with learning as whatever I was able to learn there.
Yeah.
Keep a connection. Keep a connection.
Yes.
We had every Monday and Thursday religious classes, Jewish religious classes, especially that we could, the Jewish members of the school went to.
After school, right, Roy?
No, during school.
Oh,
Religious instruction was called.
really?
Yeah, and
it was a public school.
Yes.
And they had religious. So what did they do with? Was there non-Jewish children there?
Yeah, well, they had their religious instruction.
Oh, wow,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And we had after school as well. Like just as Meir did.
Wow.
So a rabbi came in especially to give it like a class.
We had not a rabbi. We had a lady come in who was she wasn't a Rebbitzin as such, but almost equivalent to.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. And she ended up being with her husband and son at our wedding.
Oh, wow, very nice.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah.
So Barry, in terms of your first question, like what did the Pasuk have to say about Asher Golem Yerushalayim? What's the relevance of that statement?
Yeah.
So the Gemara in the Gemara Megilla explains to us that Mordecai actually was not, so to speak, taken captive and exiled from Yerushalayim. He actually went, as the Gemara says, he went into Golus himself. He went ma'atzmo. He himself.
He went
foresaw-
voluntarily.
He voluntarily went. He voluntarily went into Golis.
Wow.
As the Meforshim say, he wanted to prepare the way, the groundwork for the eventual coming of the rest of the Klal Yisrael. So when they would finally come to Babel, they would be able to have a somewhat of a semblance of Jewish and Torah life in some way or another.
Wow.
So he actually went down there on his own. So that's very significant. So
What-
you see,
What about Yechoniah?
right, that also that could have been that. I'm not sure. It doesn't say that from what I see here. Right now, I don't see that whether which came first. If Mordecai came with them, or because those were taken captive, but they were taken captive earlier, previous to the main exile that followed. Maybe I think it was 10 years later, right?
Hmm.
Well,
So,
the exile of Yechoniah came after the main exile?
no, before it came
It
before.
was before, okay.
10 years before, if I'm not mistaken. So, so I'm not
Okay.
sure if Mordecai went with them at that time. He chose to go with them at the time, or maybe after they left, then he maybe followed suit sometime later. It's not clear to me.
Well, from the Lashon, it seems to say
Hmm.
that he voluntarily went when Yechonah was exiled.
How do you see that from the Lashon?
Let's see. Asher Higla Yerushalayim. He was exiled from Yerushalayim with
Yeah.
Higla Asher Higla im Yechanya Melech Yehuda.
Oh, so yeah, right. Very good. If you're looking at the pasuk, it seems to say that Mordecai went along with them, and
it also seems to say he was exiled. It doesn't seem to make it voluntary. The Lashon doesn't support what Rebbe just read.
That word with may actually be just as.
Okay, that works.
yeah, and also you have to take a look at the double lashon. The pasuk mentions Gala, Asher Gala Nebuchadnezzar Melech Bavel. Why does it mention? They Meforshim asked this question. Why is it mentioned twice? This expression of Golas, right? Oh, so the Medrash says. So the Medrash says as follows. This will answer the question. The Medrash Yalkut Shmoni says, right, that Asher Golam Yisrael Amarava Shegolam Na'atzmoi. That's the Gemara in Megilla. V'lama, the Medrash was followed. Lama Shnei Pamim Asher Gola. Why does it mention Asher Gola twice? Another time. So it answers Gola im Golas Yechanya. He was in exile along with the Golas of Yechanya, B'choyzer Yerushalayim, and then he went back to Yerushalayim. Well, Hagla also Shneis because im Golas Achrona, and then he went into Golas again, right, with the Golas that was put into effect by Nebuchadnezzar at the last stage of the Golas. So that's a little bit more background of what
Right.
Moses ordered. It doesn't tell you that much, but it gives you a little bit of a picture.
Right. So all along, Mordecai had the desire to protect the Jewish people.
Yeah, that you see here, right? That
It wasn't just all of a sudden. I mean, he was always caring about our fate.
Was he in touch, so to speak, with Hashem? Did he have any nevuah or any sort of any communication from Hashem to do this?
well, the it's not clear. That's part of the whole point of the Megillah, that the Megillah, there's no direct divine intervention, right?
Yeah,
Everything that was taking place in the preparations and the outcome of Purim was all indirect intervention. So, but Mordecai was at the time, he was a member of the Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim, and then he would be. We'll get to a pasuk which will indicate that maybe he had some type of a prophecy or some type of ruach hakodesh, a communication from Kadosh Baruch Hu.
he had extraordinary insight in to do what he did.
Right.
Excuse me, gentlemen, I learned last week that when Mordechai was pacing back and forth in the courtyard, he was waiting to see how Hashem's salvation was going to work out, because he had Ruach HaKodesh, and he was told that Esther was going to save the people. And another interesting factor was Mordechai gave Achashverosh advice that he should have another beauty contest and pick a queen, because he didn't want Esther to marry the Goyish king. So this is sort of a conflict. If the Ruach HaKodesh told him she was going to save the people, why was he trying to find another queen? So the Mefarshim explained that the halacha was supreme to Mordechai, that you could not marry a guy, and that's why he tried to discourage the king from marrying her, but it didn't work out. So that was Yad Hashem. This is what I learned, which was an interesting parish to the Megillah. So I just wanted to share it with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay.
Very nice.
There you go. Right. So yeah, we'll see. We'll get to those psukim. We'll see more about those things. All right, let's go on to the next pasuk.
Vayehi Zion, right? Vayehi Omein et Hadassah. And he had brought up Hadassah, he Esther Bas Doda, his uncle's daughter. So she was, that made him his niece.
Yes, according to this, according to Pashtus of the psukim, that was his niece, right?
Uncle's daughter is a cousin.
Yeah. He ain't, pardon me?
Your uncle's daughter is your cousin.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Oh, your cousin. Oh, okay. Okay, because the reason I thought it would be a niece is because you in marriage you're not supposed to marry your cousin. Niece. No, is that right, Rebbe? As far as women who are prohibited to you?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I have to look into that. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought you could marry your first
Yeah.
cousin.
I mean, you can't.
I have to look into that. You're
No,
right.
My
no, I don't
grandmother
think
and
so.
grandfather were
All
first.
right, yeah, we have to look. So they were first cousins?
Yes.
I don't know. Well, anyway, maybe Rebbe will enlighten us on that. I mean, obviously you can't marry your aunt, right?
Right.
That's us, sir.
You're right. You're
I mean, so there
right.
are certain relationships. There are certain relationships that are prohibited, and I always learned that a cousin was prohibited, but not a niece.
Okay.
In other words, you can
Barry,
marry your daughter's sister. You can marry your sister's daughter.
So Barry,
Okay, well,
it
yeah.
says, what is
Yeah, but-
clear? I asked, can you marry a cousin? It says, what is clear is that no opinion.
where is this
Talmud-
from?
This is, let's see the source. Wikipedia, it looks like. There's
Okay,
no
okay.
opinion in the Talmud that forbids marriage to a cousin or a sister's daughter, a niece. And
That's the
even,
niece, right?
right,
Okay.
and even it commends marriage to the latter, the closer relation of the two. So
I'm
that's a
sorry, what is
brief,
that last? Statement?
and it even commends marriage to the latter,
Yes.
the closer of the two.
Yeah, it's very good. Yes, it's actually a very,
Oh.
very approved upon practice, correct?
What, to marry your niece?
Yeah, according to Wikipedia.
Yeah,
No,
you help,
no,
you
I'm
help,
Yeah,
asking you,
yeah.
the
you
rabbi
help,
said
you help
it's.
out your brother and your
That's
sister.
That's what
What's
I
he
learned.
referring to?
Let's see if there's a source at all for this.
Where's the list
Okay,
of
so either
relationships in
way,
the, where's the list of relationships in the Chumash?
That's in, we'll be getting to it. That was in Kadoshim.
There are two lists. One's in Leviticus and Vayikra, and one's in Devarim. I don't know where though.
Right.
Mhm. I mean, this is related to the question of whether he was married to her, to Esther, right? There's an opinion that he was actually married to her,
Right.
right?
That's right. That's right.
So
But on the other hand, he took her as his daughter. He foster father.
Right.
So
what?
he adopted her. So since he adopted her, does that change the relationships altogether? Because how can you marry your daughter?
No, it doesn't. No, she doesn't become a real daughter. It doesn't become a real daughter.
No, but if you adopted her, it's as if she was a real daughter.
Yeah, but
It doesn't change anything.
the best way to adopt her would be to marry her.
That would just he would be a guardian. Yeah, he would be a guardian. Yeah, it would be an act of chesed if he married her.
That's right.
So he didn't actually adopt her as we understand adoption.
I'm not. That's probably not exactly the way we adopt.
Right, right.
Yeah. I don't think. Well, I don't know. Whatever goes on today, I'm not going to get into it. All right, let's see the next pasuk. That well, we're in the middle of this, right? Oh, we're in Zion. Let's continue on with
Okay.
Zion.
We were in the middle. All right, so let me just Vayehi Amen et Hadassah he Esther bas Doda ki ein lo, because she didn't have av v'ein. She didn't have a father or a mother. The Hanara Yefat Toar. She was very beautiful. The Tovas Mara, and she was pleasant to look at. Uvamos Aviha Ve'ima Lekacha Mordechai Lo Levas. He took her to himself for a daughter. That's what Roy is saying. That's Roy's point.
Right. Well,
As like a daughter.
And the father and mother
I
died.
mean, but she wasn't. Yeah.
so how do you
Okay.
understand? Look at the structure of the. Let's look at the structure of the pasuk for a moment. Right.
Okay.
What is the how many parts can you break this pasuk into?
Well, the first it tells us that he raised her as so to speak as a parent in
Right.
his family, right? So that's one thing we know, and we also know that her mother and father actually died. It wasn't that they were still alive she came to live with him because, you know, what, some special circumstance. She didn't have a father or mother. And then we know she's very beautiful. So
Was it-
then we're told that when her father and her mother died, Mordechai took her to himself for a daughter. So it seems that that's very immediate. In other words, she wasn't put into some kind of adoption agency or something, and then he came and got her. He took her right from the time the mother and father died.
Right.
The English says
It
here,
wasn't like,
yeah, the English says here, and he had reared Esther Hadassah since as his uncle's daughter. He had reared, so that's sort of in the if that is what the translation actually is, then it's like as he's finished rearing.
Right.
I
And
don't know.
when did that take place?
when her parents
No,
died.
it doesn't say.
Oh. Right, but so what?
But
I'm
the
just
pasuk
concerned
says
about
that.
the last part of the pasuk seems very much out of place. It's at the very end, right?
Mm.
And
It's back to front.
besides, it's repetitive in a certain sense.
It's back to front.
It's back, number one, it's back to front, and then it also, when it said ain lo av aim, right? Ain lo av aim. So okay, whatever happened to them. But obviously, she doesn't have a father or mother.
Mm.
So I'm just kind of wondering what the additional statement at the very end of the pasuk is coming to include what we didn't already know before. If it wanted, he could have put this at the very beginning, right? That would have been the best thing, no? I think that's what you were indicating, Roy, a bit, right?
Also, it makes a point about her name.
Right.
It doesn't say, oh, her name was Esther, but it was said she had reared Hadassah, that is Esther. There's seems to be some kind of emphasis or some finger pointing to the name as being significant with, and the footnote says here, or the side note, there is a difference of opinion amongst the sages whether Hadassah was her proper name and Esther was added later, or vice versa. Both names are descriptive of her virtues. Hadassah is derived from the Hebrew word hadass, myrtle, and Esther from Ishtaha, as beautiful as the moon. But Esther is also hidden or secret or something, isn't it?
Yes, that's also true. That's part of what the moon is. The moon, many times, at least part of it is hidden. No, at least part of it's hidden, and also many times it's entirely hidden.
So there is mystery implied.
Right. Right. Exactly. All right. This pasuk needs a little bit more work in terms of a clear understanding of it. In the meantime, let's go to the next pasuk.
We don't have anything in Pierke, Avos.
I don't have I'm still working on this pasuk in terms of a clear correspondence. I don't have a clear correspondence that would be helpful understanding the pasuk a bit. But if I'm going through it, if we have a chance, I'll try and come up with something. If we do, I'll go back and explain it, right? Because the whole pasuk itself has to be explained a bit.
Right.
Okay. Ches.
Yes.
Vayehi v'hi shama Devar HaMelech, when it came to pass, when the king's order and his decree were heard, the Dasa Uvehikovetz Naaros Rabos El Shushan Habira El Yad Heni V'telokach Esther El Bas HaMelech El Beis HaMelech El Yad Higa Shomer Hanashim. When it came to pass, when the king's order and his decree were heard, many maidens were gathered to Shushan, the capital, to the custody of Haggai. And Esther was taken to the king's house, to the custody of Haggai, the keeper of women. So she got swept up. I guess everybody got rounded up. I don't think Mordecai volunteered her. I guess
Okay.
it would probably all these other people were happy to get their daughter
Yes.
in the beauty pageant, right?
Right.
Because they wanted their daughter to be the next queen, but not Mordecai. He wouldn't volunteer Esther. So it must have been an involuntary roundup. No?
Definitely so. And well, that,
No, I don't think he would volunteer Esther. Chas v'shalom.
well, no, definitely, the taking was against her will, that's for sure. That was for sure.
Isn't there something about somebody telling Haggai or whatever that that Mordecai has a daughter, that there's this beautiful woman living in his house?
I'm not sure. I don't recall it right away. It could be.
I'm not sure either, but I think nobody remembers anything like that. No. No.
Okay. We'll see. Actually, okay. I don't want to go overtime on this year, so I tell you what, we'll come back to this We'll come back to this pasuk tomorrow. We'll start again with pasuk Ches again, and
We'll start with Ches again. Okay.
right.
All right.
And just to make a point on the previous pasuk, we made a point that the second with the second mentioning of the passing of Esther's parents. So the Gemara
Right.
makes a point of this, right? It's the Gemara in Megilla, Daf Yud Gimel Amid Aleph. So there's a drasha based on this that the parents did not die simultaneously at the same time. And the Gemara learns out that when after Esther was conceived, then her father was nifter, and when after she was born, her mother was nifter. Right? So she lost both her parents, but she lost her father.
So she never knew them.
Never knew them. Never knew them. Exactly. Right?
How did she get the name? Who named?
Never knew.
Well, that could have been done by
Mordecai.
Mordecai. Yeah. If Mordecai was the head of the family, he naturally would have taken over, right? And that's what he did. That's, he obviously he understood and realized his responsibility. Yeah, that's for sure. Mordecai was not a person to shirk his responsibilities at all. That's for sure.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Let's take a break till the next year, and we'll continue.